Warning! This basically says I am not responsible for your shady soldering, wrong pad choices, broken or damaged items in attempting this process. If you are a confident builder and you've done upgrades before, by all means, please proceed. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis and today we're going to talk about some Emax Tinyhawk Freestyle upgrades. These are the upgrades that you need to do on your Freestyle. If you want it to be a dedicated 2S setup, this video will be all about that. Adding the XT30, adding the new RunCam Nano V2 on here, adding an XM Plus receiver and extending your range by about 4 times. The original SPI receiver on this board, it will only get you out maybe a couple football fields. So a lot of you guys want to be able to fly this further. And we're going to talk about some props on here that I've chosen. I did try the 65mm props, and I also am using the Avon Rush props on here. Those are the ones that come along with it. We're also going to talk about the VTX upgrade. I know a lot of people have been having some issues with that upgrade. I'm going to show you how to properly do it and wire it up without frying your board. Very important. We're going to upgrade this one to about 350 milliwatts. So I picked out a VTX that will fit underneath this top plate, and we're also going to talk about which antenna to upgrade to as well. I have 2 different antennas that I tested with this Freestyle upgrade process. So let's go ahead and get started now with the first of many upgrades that you need to do to your Freestyle to make it super awesome. Here we go. Okay, first thing we're going to do is remove that PH 2.0 connector. You will no longer be able to fly at 1S. It will be a dedicated 2S setup. This is something what it should look like right here. Next, we're going to install the RunCam Nano V2 on there. Go ahead and snip off the 3 wires that are on the back of that Emax camera and make sure the colors match up. Yellow signal, red is power, and black is ground right there. That is the way it should look. And you're going to go ahead and connect those to your RunCam, and it should look something like this. Go ahead and put heat shrink on each of those wires and plug in the camera right here. Next, we're going to take a piece of VHB, put a small tab of VHB on the base of the camera, and then apply it to the front of the frame. That's going to hold it in place. Next, we're going to remove the VTX. The original VTX was pretty light, but we want to upgrade the 25 milliwatt to something beastie, like 350 milliwatt. I'm choosing the HDLRC Forward Mini VTX. Once you have yours, go ahead and flip it over and let's look at the back where the harness is. There's a schematic. Please do follow along with your schematic to make sure you get this right and you don't fry your flight controller. So we're going to go ahead and plug this harness in and go ahead and flip it over. You're going to look at these 2 wires right here. Those are next to the video signal. You don't need those 2 wires. You're going to solder the next 2 wires, the VCC wire and the ground wire at the very top of this board to the right, straight to the battery terminal on your flight controller. You can also use an LC filter if you get video noise in between the power source and the VTX. Make sure that your capacitor doesn't come off in this process. Next, you're going to solder the video and the RX wires to the flight controller. So the yellow wire will go to the video out right there. It says V out, and the white wire is going to go to your RX. That's for your smart audio. Do not solder your VTX directly to the VTX power tab on the flight controller. This may actually fry your $50 flight controller. I have had reports of that happening. Best prop for me was the Emax Rush prop up against the HQ 65mm prop. This one's fast, but it's just not good in those big maneuvers. Now next we're going to do the receiver upgrade, and we're going to upgrade to an XM Plus with S-Bus. It's going to make it a full range receiver. You can see those 3 tabs for the external receiver right there. You have S, 5 volt, and a negative tab right there. And right next to it, it says S-Bus. So let me just move those wires out of the way. You can see S for S-Bus, 5 volt for the power, and negative for your black wire right there for your ground wire. And next, we're going to remove this antenna. So take your soldering pin. I have the TS100, works great for me. Remove both of those 2 tabs right there. You don't need this anymore. This is the old SPI antenna. Now we have 2 new antennas on board. So you're going to put this underneath the frame. Use a little piece of 3M VHB to the back of your receiver. We're going to put that on underneath and bring the wires out the back for some zip ties and some heat shrink. Next, we can take another piece of VHB and snip a piece larger than your VTX because you don't want anything touching the frame. You don't want this VTX to come in contact with any part of this carbon frame. We're going to mount it on the very back with that MMCX connector hanging off the back just like that, and I ended up switching this one out because it broke. You want to use a small zip tie around the VTX and the bottom of the frame to secure it in place just a little more. And you also want to take a smaller piece of VHB and put between the VTX and the USB port. Super important that you don't touch and fry anything. Metal to metal or board to board is always bad. Another small piece of VHB over top of the VTX mic and any other chips that might touch the top plate. Just give it a little bit of padding in between the VTX and any parts of the frame. Next, you're going to snip a small piece of VHB to put underneath your Nano for tilt adjustment. This is just going to hold it in place for your hot glue process coming up. And let's go ahead and get a weigh-in on what we've done here in this process. Now, this is the modded one with the Emax Nano antenna on there, 48.7 grams. And with the 2S 300 milliamp, my battery of choice, 73.4 grams. That's actually lighter than the original one. The upgrades from the original weight, 73 grams. The other one, 76 grams. I ended up switching out to the Lumineer AX2 right-hand circular polarized antenna. You can see I wrapped it around the outside post right there, and it creates a little loop that you can tuck your XT30 up into, and this will keep it from hitting the prop as the prop swings around. Otherwise, you're going to have kind of wires hanging loose, and it will hit the battery. So that's the best way to keep it away from hitting that battery wire. So now we're all done with our upgrades, guys. Let's go outside. Let me show you the difference between the cameras and the performance. Here we go. So let me go ahead and show you guys some of the flight footage and the difference here. You can see the new upgrades on the left hand side where it says Freestyle 2 and TH Freestyle on the right. That is the original camera, the Emax stock cam. It is a super lightweight camera. If you're looking for lightweight, that is probably the choice. But also we have to talk about the range extension here with the XM Plus. I'm able to fly further out behind things and not fail safe as easily as the original SPI receiver that's built into the original flight controller on here, the Tinyhawk flight controller. You do see some horizontal lines here. I'll just make that a little bit bigger for my upgraded setup without an LC filter. So if you decide not to put the LC filter in there, this is what you can expect, but it has way less breakup than the top camera up there. You can see that original 25 milliwatt just doesn't do well when it has trees between you and the VTX. So you can get in there and do some pretty close proximity flying with it, but you're gonna have to keep it close. And that's kind of the drawback of having 25 milliwatt on such a fun quad. That's why most people, the first thing they're gonna do and the first thing people have been asking is, how can we get this 25 milliwatt upgraded? And here I'm gonna show you flying through these trees right here. These are back behind some really thick trees. VTXs don't do well between this much canopy and the goggles. And here, I just went straight through, no problem. And up high above the trees, no problem. The great thing about the Nano V2 is that you can see really great detail. When you get close to the ground, you can actually see the blades of grass and the leaves and the detail on those baseball lights, those baseball field, soccer field lights. We'll do a couple power loops here over the goalpost. And this was a darker day. I was flying on a darker day during the RunCam V2 testing than the original day with the original camera from the Freestyle. So you're gonna even get better video than what you see here with the RunCam Nano V2. And Trent is very trusting. Whoa, I don't want to hit you, buddy. So now we're going into the trees right here, and this is where the 350 milliwatt really shines through here. This is a really thick, dense canopy, and I'm at least a football field away right now. There's a little bit of breakup right there by the playground equipment, of course, but that's going to happen. The detail on this camera is way better. It also has much better dark to light transition. When you come underneath something, see how quickly it changes from dark to light. Very nice. There's a little bit of breakup there in between the trees. I have a whole lot of canopy in between myself. And I tested out both the antennas for you guys here. So this footage you see right here is the Emax Nano antenna. That's what you could expect with the upgraded VTX and the Nano antenna. It's a little bit of breakup. And then there's a durability test for that hot glue. It's still on there. It did not come off. So now I'm pretty happy with where mine's at, how it's flying, and it really is awesome on 2S. I don't miss the 1S side of this at all because I'm a more advanced pilot. I'm also not flying this one indoors. If you are someone who needs to fly 1S to begin with, if you're a beginner, my advice to you is to stick with the original connector. You can make these other upgrades on here. You could also add in a second battery lead coming from the power tab with your XT30 on there, but you're going to have space issues there. So you're going to have to figure out a way to secure it while you're flying it. So having that extra wire on there is just going to be a little more complicated, but not super hard to do. All these upgrades were pretty straightforward. You just want to be careful about soldering on your VTX, obviously. Some issues with that, people putting too much voltage to this board, and you're going to have to use a camera that can handle a lower voltage, because any of these cameras that are over 7 volts, it might not work out for this particular power source. And you can also go straight to the power from your VTX. If you get lines on the screen, my suggestion is to find a super small LC filter and put between your power source and your VTX coming from this board, and that will help clear up some of those horizontal lines if you get them in your setup. But now I think I'm at a really good spot with this. The tune is absolutely fine on here. I don't have a lot of problems with it. You're going to want to wrap your antenna wire around that back post like I have, and tuck your XT30 up inside there. That way your XT30 doesn't move out or shift into the prop when you're flying it. Just kind of a little trick right there to keep your XT30 in place. And honestly, I've been flying this with the hot glue camera mount up front. There is no TPU mount available for the Runcam Nano 2 at this point, but I've used hot glue in the past. And guys, let me tell you, once you bang this pretty hard, the hot glue might come loose, but I have crashed this quad all over the field and it has not moved. It is just has a little tiny piece of VHB underneath the camera and some hot glue up top, down bottom, and a little bit on the back side of the camera, and it's absolutely solid. It's locked into my position that I want. Just get the right tilt that you want and set it in place. If you have to remove it, you can. You're not going to tear up this camera. Some people might be worried about putting hot glue on a camera, but I have had no problems with it, and I've done it tons and tons of times in the past, and it's ultra durable. But I'm super happy with the upgrades, how they came out, and I'm really mostly happy with the upgraded VTX, the antenna, the extra range, and the awesome new camera compared to the old camera. It's a huge upgrade to just put the Runcam Nano V2 on here in comparison to that original Emax camera. It is like night and day, as I showed you guys in this video. But enjoy all the upgrades and the changes on yours. Be super careful out there. There are some guys making some mistakes on these upgrades. So the board is about $50. So just beware that when you're doing these upgrades, you have to kind of follow along with the directions exactly, or you might fry your board. So that's kind of an expensive mistake to make. But if you can do it right, you're going to have just a much better quad, and it's going to be like a brand new quad all over again. So let me know down in the comments if you did some upgrades on yours and what you did with yours. Thanks again for watching the Drone Camps channel, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Have a good one. I'll see you on the next one.